The city that never sleeps seemed to pause for a moment, the air thick with unease as Melania Trump stepped out of her SUV into the chilly January night. The flashing lights of Le Bernardin were no longer a beacon of exclusivity, but a stage for something far more visceral. A story that would echo through the corridors of media, social platforms, and public discourse. Beside her, her teenage son Baron walked silently, his hands tucked into the pockets of his coat, his expression a mixture of youthful confusion and a deep sense of frustration. They had come for a simple dinner, a moment of quiet respite, but instead, they found themselves thrust into the public eye, a pawn in a larger, divisive narrative. Moments earlier, they had been denied entry into the restaurant due to Baron's last name, Trump. Simple, yet loaded with implications. The reasons given were vague: concerns raised by other patrons, whispers of discomfort among the staff, and ultimately, a refusal rooted in political bias. It wasn't the first time they had faced such treatment, but this was personal, an affront to their dignity, a violation of their privacy. Melania had endured countless public battles, but witnessing her son subjected to such public humiliation was something she hadn't been prepared for. Baron, at 17, was beginning to grasp the complexities of being part of a family with deep political ties. His life, once defined by private moments, was now dissected and broadcasted for the world to scrutinize. The casual walks through city streets, the spontaneous dinners, were no longer simple moments. They had become events, each interaction fraught with implications and judgments. "Mom," Baron said softly, breaking the silence as they walked toward the crowd that had gathered outside the restaurant. His voice trembled just slightly, revealing his vulnerability. "Why are they doing this?" Melania's grip tightened around his hand, a silent promise of support. "Some people let fear dictate their actions," she replied, her voice steady despite the storm building around them. "But we don't fear them." It was true. Fear had been a constant companion in the Trump family's journey. Fear of media manipulation, fear of political retribution, and fear of being stripped of their humanity in the court of public opinion. Yet, Melania had always carried herself with grace, an unwavering strength forged through years of navigating the complexities of power and scrutiny. In this moment, however, the veneer of composure wavered. She saw the boy beside her, the boy who had once been an ordinary child, now burdened with the weight of being labeled, judged, and rejected. Outside the restaurant, the crowd had grown, drawn together by the unfolding story. Journalists weaved through them, cameras rolling, microphones thrust into the air, capturing every word, every gesture. Social media exploded with commentary, accusations, and accusations turned into condemnation. Hashtag boycott Le Bernardin trended on Twitter as calls for justice reverberated across screens and timelines. Melania's phone buzzed incessantly. Texts came flooding in from Ivanka, Don Jr., Eric, and even former colleagues offering their support and solidarity. Yet amidst the messages of encouragement, the pain remained. This was not just about a restaurant. It was about the erosion of civility, respect, and the right to exist freely without judgment based on association or ancestry. "They'll never understand what it's like," Baron said, his voice low. "They'll never see it from our side." Melania looked down at her son, her heart heavy with both pride and sadness. "Maybe not," she said quietly, "but we stand together. Always." The tension reached a fever pitch as news vans arrived. Anchors positioned themselves for live segments, and a cacophony of voices filled the air. The atmosphere was electric, charged with anticipation and outrage. And then, amidst the storm, came the unmistakable sound, the rhythmic beat of tires on pavement signaling Donald Trump's motorcade. 10 minutes had passed since the initial rejection, but it felt like a lifetime. Melania's breath hitched as the first SUV rounded the corner, its headlights cutting through the darkness like a beacon of authority. Baron tightened his grip on her hand, both of them watching as the motorcade came to a halt. The crowd, momentarily silenced, seemed to hang in a suspended state of expectation. Then, a hush fell over them, a collective breath drawn before the storm resumed. Melania's phone lit up once again, vibrating insistently with updates. "TMZ is live streaming," Don Jr. texted, followed by a message from Eric. "They'll regret this." Moments later, the door of Donald Trump's vehicle opened, and the former president stepped out into the night. His presence commanded attention, a symbol of resilience, strength, and unwavering resolve. The media snapped photos. The crowd erupted in cheers and protests alike, and the moment was sealed in history. "Sir," his head of security said, stepping forward to secure the perimeter. But Trump raised his hand for silence. The crowd quieted as his voice rang out, steady and firm, cutting through the din. "You know what's interesting?" Trump began, his words measured yet powerful. "I helped this restaurant during COVID, paid their staff for months while they were shut down, never asked for recognition. And now, look at what they've done." Inside Lou Bernardin, James Chin's composure crumbled. The restaurant owner, usually poised and confident, stood trembling behind his podium as he attempted to justify the unjustifiable. But Trump wasn't interested in apologies. He wanted accountability. As the night unfolded, it became clear that this wasn't just about a dinner or a name. It was about something deeper, something far more profound. Melania and Barron weren't just figures in a political narrative. They were symbols of what could happen when fear overtakes principles, when prejudice replaces empathy. The scene was one of resistance, of defiance against a tide of injustice. By the end of the night, the once crowded streets of Lou Bernardin were silent, save for the murmurs of those who had witnessed something unforgettable. The Trump family left the restaurant, heads held high, stronger for having faced adversity together. As the motorcade made its way through the city, Melania's phone buzzed one last time. A message from Ivanka. "Well done. They'll remember this night for a long time." The crowd around Lou Bernardin continued to swell, their emotions rising with each passing second. Melania and Barron stood at the center of this storm, their presence a stark contrast to the chaos unfolding around them. Melania's composure was unmatched, but the weight of the moment was undeniable. Her mind was a whirlwind of memories. Sunday dinners spent at this very restaurant, simple moments of joy now overshadowed by a stark reality. Barron, meanwhile, had seen his world shift. Once a typical teenager navigating high school and after-school activities, he now faced a landscape where every move, every word, was dissected and scrutinized. Through the sea of voices and flashes of cameras, Barron glanced at his mother. Her strength steadied him, but there was a flicker of sadness in her eyes, an unspoken acknowledgement of the price they were paying for standing firm. "They won't stop," Barron murmured, more to himself than to Melania. "Not until we leave." Melania gave his hand a reassuring squeeze, her grip firm and unwavering. "We don't back down," she replied softly. "Not now. Not ever." Across from them, the murmurs grew louder as James Chin, the beleaguered owner of Lou Bernardin, continued to attempt damage control. His attempts at justification fell flat under the weight of public scrutiny. Every word he uttered only seemed to deepen the divide. His explanations met with growing skepticism and disdain. "Mr. Trump, please," Chin stammered, desperation clear in his voice. "There's been a misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" Trump interjected, his voice steady and cutting through the noise. "This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a calculated decision based on fear and prejudice." Chin's eyes darted toward his legal counsel, who shook his head subtly, signaling no further comment. The weight of their situation was evident. Melania's phone buzzed again, the notifications incessant. News outlets, conservative commentators, and allies from all corners of the country were sending messages of support. But beneath the surface of those affirmations lay a deeper concern, a recognition of the cultural war they were fighting. This wasn't just about one incident. It was a broader attack on principles of fairness, respect, and equal treatment. "Mom," Barron whispered, his voice barely audible over the din. "Can we go somewhere else?" "Anywhere." Melania's lips pressed into a thin line, her mind calculating their next move. Her eyes scanned the crowd, the media frenzy around them, and then settled on the restaurant once more. "Not yet," she said firmly. "There's more to this than a meal. We've been erased from this space, but we won't be erased from history." The air was thick with tension as Secret Service agents continued to move through the gathering crowd, maintaining a secure perimeter for the Trump family. It was a surreal sight, guards ensuring safety in a democratic society where public dissent was typically met with free expression. Yet, in this moment, dissent had been weaponized against them. "What about the diners inside?" Barron asked, his tone edged with concern. "They saw everything, right? Won't that change things?" Melania turned to look at him, her expression softening briefly. "Some people don't want to see the truth, Barron, but those who do, they won't forget." In the midst of the chaos, Donald Trump stood tall, his gaze unwavering as he addressed the media. "You know, I've built a lot of things in New York," he began, his voice steady and authoritative. "Skyscrapers, businesses, communities. I've never had to turn anyone away based on their name. But tonight, they chose fear over fairness. His words resonated not just with those present, but with millions watching through their screens. Social media was ablaze, as messages of solidarity flooded every platform. Hashtag Stand with Barron and hashtag Justice for Trump trended globally, drawing attention to the absurdity of the situation. Trump's presence was a force of nature, a symbol of resistance against an establishment that sought to dictate values. We helped rebuild New York when it needed us. Trump continued, his voice growing stronger. We helped our city thrive, brought people together, not tore them apart. Tonight, they tore us apart because they couldn't handle who we are. Chin, unable to maintain composure any longer, stepped forward again, this time flanked by his lawyer. Mr. Trump, he began, his voice quivering. We understand the gravity of the situation. We never intended. Trump cut him off mid-sentence. Intentions don't matter now. What matters is the action that was taken. You treated us differently because of fear, not fairness. The crowd, once chaotic, grew eerily silent. The gravity of Trump's words hung in the air. He wasn't merely speaking about a dinner reservation. He was addressing a broader societal issue. Fear was a powerful tool, wielded to silence those who refused to conform, to push them aside when their existence became inconvenient. Barron shifted beside his father, his discomfort palpable. Dad, he said quietly, can we just leave now? Trump glanced down at his son, his expression softening briefly. Not yet, Barron. Not until everyone understands the truth. A woman stepped forward from the crowd, her voice calm but firm. Mr. Trump, she said, we remember the kindness you showed this city during the darkest days. Tonight, you've shown the courage to stand up when others faltered. Trump nodded in acknowledgement, his gaze scanning the faces of those who had gathered. That's what matters, he said. Courage over fear, fairness over prejudice. As the night wore on, more individuals emerged to speak, sharing their personal experiences with discrimination and injustice. Stories of immigrants, business owners, and ordinary citizens who had faced similar treatment at the hands of fear-mongering establishments. It was a testament to the power of unity. How, despite political differences and social divides, people could come together to demand accountability. Melania, standing beside her husband and son, absorbed the outpouring of support. Her initial sadness had morphed into a fierce determination. This wasn't just about them anymore. This was about standing for the values they held dear, for the truth they knew to be right. Let's go, Dad, Barron said once more, his voice steadier now. We've said enough. Trump gave his son a proud smile and looked toward the entrance of Bernardin. Yes, son, let's go. As they walked away from the restaurant, leaving the media frenzy behind, Melania's phone buzzed one final time. A message from Ivanka awaited. Simple yet profound. Well done. They'll remember this night for a long time. And they would. As the motorcade slowly pulled away from the chaotic scene at Bernardin, the tension didn't dissipate. Instead, it lingered, seeping into the hearts and minds of everyone who had witnessed the events unfold. The night had become a turning point, a stark reminder of the fragile nature of civility in a polarized world. Inside the SUV, Melania sat with Barron and Donald, the quiet hum of the engine providing a brief respite from the storm they had just left behind. Melania's thoughts were a mosaic of emotions: anger, pride, sadness, and a profound sense of purpose. Barron leaned against the window, his eyes watching the cityscape as it blurred past. He had experienced more in the past hour than most teenagers endure in a lifetime. Donald glanced at his wife and son, his expression contemplative. His usual confident demeanor was tempered by the weight of the moment. You did well tonight, he said softly, breaking the silence. Both of you. Barron gave a small smile. Thanks, Dad. It wasn't easy. No, Melania agreed. But sometimes, standing up is more important than anything else. The SUV cruised through the streets of New York, passing familiar landmarks. The Empire State Building lit in blue, the flashing billboards of Times Square, the quiet elegance of Park Avenue. Each location carried memories, moments of triumph and adversity. Yet tonight's events would be etched into the city's history alongside them. The motorcade arrived at Rouse, a renowned East Harlem restaurant known for its warmth and authenticity. Unlike the sterile formality of Bernardin, Rouse was a place where tradition, family, and community were seamlessly intertwined. Frank Pello Jr., the owner, greeted them with open arms. smiling warmly. "Always a table for family," he said, gesturing toward a cozy corner booth. Baron took a deep breath as they settled in. The atmosphere was serene. No media frenzy. No protests. Just the hum of conversation and the clinking of cutlery. The contrast was a welcome relief. But the underlying emotion still simmered beneath the surface. "You okay, sweetheart?" Melania asked, brushing her fingers through Baron's hair. Baron nodded. "Yeah, just thinking." "I know," Melania replied. "It's a lot to process." Donald leaned back in his seat, reflecting on the night's events. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "people forget easily. They move on to the next headline, the next outrage. But moments like these standouts, they stick. They create stories that shape how people remember history." Melania smiled faintly. "You're right. And what we did tonight wasn't just about us. It was about standing up for what's right, even when it's hard." Baron looked between his parents, a warmth spreading through him. "It's not just standing up," he said quietly. "It's about knowing who has your back, knowing who really cares." Frank Pello Jr. brought over a plate of food, placing it down gently before the Trump family. "You're among friends here," he said softly. "Always." The simplicity of the gesture spoke volumes. In a world where relationships and loyalty were often measured by social media interactions, moments like these, pure, genuine, and uncalculated, felt rare and invaluable. As they began to eat, the conversations flowed naturally. Melania and Donald shared stories of their early years, of the struggles they faced building their business empire, and of the relentless pursuit of the American dream. Baron, listening intently, felt connected to a lineage of resilience, a family that had faced both triumph and adversity. The evening was peaceful, a stark contrast to the storm they had weathered earlier. The world beyond Rouse seemed distant, as though it couldn't penetrate the warmth and familiarity of the moment. Yet, the reality remained. The headlines, the outrage, the division, they wouldn't disappear. But for tonight, they had reclaimed something far more significant, a sense of normalcy and unity. Melania placed her fork down and looked across the table at her husband and son. "You know," she said softly, "no matter how much they try to erase us, they can't erase the truth. We've lived it. We've built it. And tonight, we've defended it." Donald nodded in agreement. "Exactly. And that truth, our truth, has the power to inspire, to create change, to forge new paths." Baron smiled faintly, his thoughts more serene now. "It's not about the fight. It's about standing together and knowing what really matters." Their meal continued in a companionable silence, punctuated by laughter and shared memories. The evening was simple, yet profound, a reminder that in a world often defined by spectacle and division, the most important battles are fought at the heart of the family. As they finished their meal, the reality of the headlines loomed in the background once again. Melania's phone buzzed softly on the table, revealing yet another message. This one from Ivanka. "Well done. They'll remember this night for a long time." They would remember, not just as a moment of controversy or resistance, but as a powerful narrative of unity, integrity, and courage. The road ahead would be challenging, but in that moment, the Trump family found solace in the knowledge that they had stood together against the tide of fear and division. As they left Rouse, the city felt quieter, more introspective. The crowd of media and protesters had long dissipated, leaving the Trumps to walk through the streets of New York at their own pace. The world continued to turn, but tonight, they had carved out a piece of history, a memory to hold on to, a story of resilience that would be told for years to come. In the end, they didn't need a fancy restaurant to validate their worth. Their strength, their unity, and their unwavering commitment to truth were the foundation of their legacy. And as they walked away, the city seemed to hum softly around them, honoring a family's journey through a night of both trial and triumph.